Hello friends, welcome. In this session, I'm going to discuss the role and significance of cusps in Krishnamurti Paddhati, and we are going to touch, these topics that what is meant by cusps, what are cusps in KP astrology, what is the difference between a lagna chart and the cusp chart, which is also called as the chalit chart in KP astrology, and how the cusp are used in Krishnamurti Paddhati from a predictive point of view, and what is the major disadvantage or the stumbling blocks or the roadblocks in using cusp in a birth horoscope, and then we will touch base a little bit on the use of cusp in KP Horary Astrology. So let's get started. Before jumping into the cusp, let's quickly uh, look at how a horoscope is erected using the traditional method. So first you have to find out the ascendant. And so what is the ascendant? Ascendant is the zodiac sign rising in the east for a particular location, for a particular date, time, and place. So let's break down, this definition. And this is the location, Delhi, and this is just an example, that I have taken. And this is the date, and this is the time. And so what we are going to do is to find out the sign rising in the east. This is the eastern horizon from Delhi. Let's assume that this is the eastern horizon, and the sign that was rising on the east was, let's assume it was Leo, 0 degree, on 2nd July 2017, 10 a.m. Delhi, the eastern horizon, the sign that was rising was Leo, 0 degree. That is what the definition of our ascendant is, the zodiac sign rising in the east. So when we create a horoscope, we put the number 5 over here. This indicates the ascendant, so we put number 5 over here. Now let's assume that this sign Leo is going to rise for 2 hours. So at 11 a.m. we still have the Leo rising, so we'll still put the number 5 over here. And after 2 hours we will have almost the ending degrees of Leo, almost like 29 degrees or something, but we still put number 5 over here, that represents Leo, the ascendant. And then subsequently we put the other numbers in the counterclockwise fashion in a North Indian style of chart, and then we populate the planetary positions. This is how typically a traditional horoscope is prepared. Now one of the major drawback in this is that at 10 a.m. the chart was Leo rising with these kind of planetary positions. At 11 a.m. the chart was still the Leo rising with these kind of planetary position, and at 12 a.m. the chart was still the Leo. So in 2 hours the traditional chart would not change, it would remain same. So in 2 hours there are so many births that take place, so many children are born. And so with this approach what happens is that everybody has a identical or similar chart, nothing changes. The lagna or the ascendant is same, the planetary position is same, and even the mahadasha is going to remain same, because the moon is not going to move much in 2 hours of time for the Leo to rise. So obviously with this yeah, a problem came forth that if everybody has an identical chart in a 2 hour span of time, then pretty much everybody should have the same kind of life pattern in terms of predictive astrology. Obviously practically we don't see this, we see a lot of difference. In fact if even when the twins are born, sometimes one of the twins they die. So this is a major difference of life and death, and this only happens in a gap of 5 to 10 minutes. So for this reason, the traditionally we had all these divisional charts like Navansh and Dwadashan, Shodashwark, and other kind of divisional charts, where the lagnas further divided into other divisional charts just to create a differentiator between birth in a certain intervals of time. So that's the popular approach in the traditional Vedic astrology using the Shodashwark chart. But Krishnamurti, didn't go for the traditional approach, and he adopted a different system of house division, which was more popular in the West, and that's called a Placidus house system, and the this is a very commonly used house system in the Western astrology, and Placidus was born in 1603, and he was born in Italy, and he was a professor of mathematics and astronomy. He propounded this the house division system, which is known as the Placidus house system. Now, in Western astrology, there are many different kind of house system, but Placidus is one of the most popular. So Krishnamurti adopted the Placidus house division systems into his method. For this, Krishnamurti was very much criticized. There's a lot of opposition, and some of the contemporary astrologers, and even today, the astrologer, they accuse Krishnamurti of bringing in or introducing a foreign, element into traditional Vedic astrology. But Krishnamurti couldn't care less, and he was getting good results using, the Placidus house system. And so this is what he recommends in his book, and this is what is followed in KP astrology, the Placidus, house system. Now, the major difference between the fixed and the Placidus is that in the fixed you have a zodiac sign rising. Right? We saw the Leo was rising, and the house span is always 30 degrees, and the total span in a horoscope for all the 12 signs is 360 degrees. But in Placidus, it is not the zodiac sign that is rising, it is the point, the zodiac point, which is rising. So in the Placidus system, you don't say that Leo is rising, you say Leo 10 degrees rising, or Leo 15 degree 30 minute is rising. So you have to be kind of accurate in terms of what point of zodiac was rising in the east, that is going to form the ascendant in a horoscope. And then the span of the horoscope, like in the traditional astrology, the span is, if the Leo is rising, then it is 30-degree fixed Leo, always Leo. But in the Placidus system, the span need to be calculated, and it could be greater than 30 degrees or less than 30 degrees, which basically means the span of a house could be greater than 30 degrees or less than 30 degrees, but the total of for all 12 houses will always be 360 degrees. And in the traditional approach, the planets are just placed in the corresponding sign wherever they are. And but when you are creating a Placidus chart, then you have to look at you have to calculate the planetary degree, and based on that, then you have to place the planets in a chalit chart or the Placidus chart. So we will look that with the help of an example. So this is one of the example. Here you find that this is a Rashi chart, and with the planets populated, and this is the Placidus or the Bhav Chalit chart. Obviously, to calculate the Placidus chart, some mathematical formulas are required. So I'm not going to get into that. But the software can help you create those kind of Placidus chart. Now, if you look at the difference between both of these charts, you find that especially if you look at the planets, you find that in the Rashi chart or the fixed, the horoscope chart, Rahu is in ascendant, but here, it goes in the 12th house. Jupiter, Moon, same over here. Saturn, same over here. And Ketu is here in the 7th, and here, it goes into the 6th. Venus here is here in 10th, here it goes in 9th. And then Mercury, Mars, and Sun, they are the same. So what is the reason for this difference between Rahu, Ketu, and Venus. So I'll give you just one example, and it's very easy to understand that why this difference occurs. In the Placidus chart, you have to you have to calculate the cusp, and then you have to calculate the planetary degree. So the uh, the the ascendant, like we mentioned that in Placidus, the ascendant, we don't say this ascendant is Leo, we say that ascendant is 14 degrees 7 minutes 25 seconds in Leo. So this is the starting point of the ascendant, and the end point is the 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 starting point of the second house. So what is the second house or the cusp starting point? It is Virgo, 10 degrees something. So we take this, and so now we say that ascendant is, the span of the ascendant is from Leo, 14 degrees something, to Virgo, 14 degrees something. This is the span of the ascendant in the Placidus cusp chart. Now, you see that this is Leo and Virgo both, so don't get confused. When you are judging a horoscope from the Bhav Chalit chart, you are only concerned with the starting point. You don't say that this person has a Leo tendency and Virgo tendencies. No, no, not that is not the case. The starting point is what need to be taken as the for reading a horoscope. So Leo is still the ascendant, and only the thing is that the span of the ascendant is from Leo 14 degree to Virgo 10 degree something. So this is the span. Now if you look at Rahu, we have noticed that Rahu was in the ascendant over here, and it has gone into the 12th house. So why this is happening is that if you look at the degree of the Rahu, you find that Rahu is in 1 degree Leo, and the ascendant starts at 14 degree, right? The starting point is 14 degrees. So obviously Rahu cannot be here. It has to be one cusp, behind. So instead of being in the ascendant, it is in the 12th house. If we look at the cusp of the 12th house, the 12th house is from, sorry about that, the cusp of the 12th house starts from Cancer, and ends here. So the 12th house is from Cancer 15 degree something to Leo 14 degree. That is the span of the 12th house. And if you look at the degree of Rahu, so Rahu is in Leo, 1 degree. So obviously Rahu is going to be here, right? Rahu is in this within the span of the 12th house. So this is why Rahu is, placed over here in the Bhav Chalit chart. This is so with Venus, and so with Ketu. Similarly, if you look at the cusp degrees of the sixth house and the ninth house, and then look at the degrees of Venus and Ketu, then you will find out that why Venus in the Rashi chart is here, and in the Chalit it is over here. So this is how the Bhav Chalit chart is. The planets are populated, in the Bhav Chalit chart, and obviously, the result changes. Here in the Rashi chart, Rahu in the first house will have a different, prediction compared to Rahu being in the 12th. This is the cusp chart. And one more thing is when we look at the Chalit chart and we see Rahu, over here in the 12th cusp, And then we see that the Cancer sign number 4 is given over here. So you don't say that Rahu is in Cancer. Rahu is still in Leo. If you look at the Rahu's degree, it is still in Leo, but it is placed in the 12th cusp. So that is how the Placidus chart is prepared. Now, once this chart is prepared, how do we use it? What is the role of the cusp in making predictions? What is its use in predictive astrology, especially in the Krishnamurti Paddhati? That we will look using an example. So I've taken the example Trump, which is the current president of US, and these are his birth particulars. And so if you are running these birth particulars in some software to generate his chart, make sure that this is a DST, daylight time. So that means that you have to subtract 1 hour. Most of the softwares will automatically take care of this, but if the software is not able to take care of this, then you have to subtract 1 hour and make the time as 9:54. This is a DT, or the daylight saving time. Now, if we look at the this is the Trump's chart, and this is the Rashi, and this is the Bhav Chalit, or the Placidus. Another thing you will notice in the Placidus chart is that here the ascendant is Leo, the second cusp is also Leo. That is what I was mentioning, the span of a cusp could be less than 30 degrees, or it could be greater than 30 degrees. So sometimes you will find that one of the signs are missing from this list. Like for example, here you have the first cusp is Leo 6 degree to 29 degrees, second cusp is Leo 29 degree to Virgo 28 degrees, and the third cusp is from Virgo 28 degrees to Scorpio 1 degree. So you see the Libra is missing over here. So the sign disappears. That this is usually called an intercepted sign, which means that the span of the third cusp is such that it has absorbed the span of Libra within it. The third cusp starts from 28 degree with Virgo and Scorpio 1 degree. So the entire Libra has been absorbed within the third cusp. So that is what is meant by intercepted sign. The total is always 360 degrees, and but sometime when you are looking at a Bhav Chalit chakra, you might find one of the sign missing. So don't get confused. It will happen because of the Placidus uh, divisions and the formula that he uses. Now let's look at what is the role of cusp in predictive astrology of Krishnamurti Paddhati. Now in Krishnamurti Paddhati, the making a prediction has a very systematic approach. First is that first you have to find out whether an event is promised at all or not. If the event is promised, then only you proceed and you work on the dasha and transit, and then you predict a probable date time when the event is going to happen. But if the event is not going to happen, then obviously you don't have to do anything. And so in a way, the Krishnamurti has I would say a two prong approach. First is find out whether an event is promised or not. So it is like a yes or no approach. If somebody comes to you and asks a question about marriage, so obviously the question is that when will I get married. So first you have to find out whether that person will be married at all or not. And if there are what is typically called as a yogas that he or she will get married, then you work out the dasha and the transit. But if the marriage is not promised, then obviously the that yoga is negated. So what we typically called as a yoga in traditional astrology, in Krishnamurti Paddhati, that role is taken by the cuspal sublord. These are the cuspal sublords. These are the cuspal sublords. And so if suppose somebody says that about the marriage, then in Krishnamurti Paddhati, first you have to find out if the seventh cusp lord signifies houses 2, 7, and 11, then the marriage is promised. If it signifies 1, 6 and 10, then marriage is not promised. These 1, 6 and 10 are the negative houses for 2, 7 and 11. So they negate a marriage. So then you say that the marriage yoga, or you say the marriage is not promised. And if if the seventh cusp of Lord signifies both 2, 7 and 11 and 1, 6 and 10, then what happens? Then marriage is promised and divorce is or separation, both things are promised. Similarly, if somebody says, will I go abroad? Then you say the sublord of the 12th cusp signifies 3, 9, 12. Then a person can go, abroad. If somebody asks a question about, whether one can have a child at all, then the fifth cusp sublord should be a significator of 2, 5, and 11. So the first, step is to find out whether an event is promised or not. Yes and no, black and white, categorically, you have to see whether that event is promised or not at all. This is a very, significant finding of Krishnamurti about, the cuspal sublords, and uh, uh, and the rules are, universal. Whether the person is born in India or Africa or US, or whether person is born in Krishna Paksha or Shukla Paksha or day or night, nothing matters. These rules are universal. If somebody is asking about marriage, then the rule is universal in Krishnamurti that the seventh cusp lot should signify 2, 7, 11. Then the marriage is promised. Similarly, about various aspects of life, like can I have a partner in business, or um, uh, whether I can meet with any accident in my life, and will I have uh, um, or can I become a film star. So there are various questions, and for all these various questions the approach is same. There is a sublord of a primary house, and that has to signify some other houses. So if that is there, then the event is promised, or we say the yoga is present, and then we proceed and work further. So theoretically, this looks such a logical, rational, and a very good approach, and neat and clean, and there are no confusions. But there is one stumbling block in using the cuspal sublord. These are the cuspal sublords. These cuspal sublords, they change very, very fast. And I'll show you an example that what happens when there is a confusion in the time of birth by maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes, or 10 minutes, which usually happens. And the even when you assume that the birth time is very precise, you really don't know, because in the delivery room the nursing staff, we don't know how accurately they are noting the time of birth. And then from the whole process of the birth of a child, from the appearance of the head to cutting of the umbilical cord, and then the child taking its first breath, this process might take whatever 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And so sometimes the time of birth is not very precise, or I would say most of the time it is not. So in that case, these sublords might change, and when this sublot changes, the whole game changes. So I'll show you with an example that what happens when there is a slight difference in time of birth. Now in this the Trump's horoscope, the time of birth is 10:54 a.m. So I'll show you that what happens when the time of birth is 10:54 a.m. and what happens when the time of birth is 11 a.m. Just a 6 minutes of difference. Now in at 10:54 a.m. this is the Bhavachalit chart. At 11 a.m. this is the Bhavachalit chart. You will see they are same. Nothing has changed. The ascendant is the same, the planets and all the planets and everything is same. Nothing has changed over here. If you look at the planetary positions, at these are at 10:54 a.m. and this is at 11 a.m. So nothing has changed. Slight degrees have changed. For example, sun over here is 29:54:32. Here it is 29:54:47. But the sublord has not changed. If you look at this planet's sublord, they have not changed. They are same. You see this? All the sublords are same. Saturn, here Saturn, Moon, nothing has changed, right? So all the sublords are same. So at 10:54 and at 11, the planetary position changed a little bit, but the sublord, didn't change. If you look at the dasha is also, the same at 10:54 because moon, hardly moves in 6 minutes, so nothing is going to change, in the Mahadasha. But if you look at the cusp, then you find that the at 10:54 the ascendant was in Leo, 6 degree 53 minutes, and the sublord was Rahu. And at 11 a.m. the ascendant was 8 degrees 4 minutes, and now the sublord has become Jupiter. So you see how the cuspal sublord has changed in just 6 minutes of time. You can match it. You see how the sublord has changed. So this has changed. Rahu at 10:54 it was Rahu, and at 11 it becomes Jupiter. Same over here. This has remained the same. This is same. This has changed. This is same. This is same. This has changed, and this is same. And this has changed. So in just 6 minutes of difference of the time of birth, we see that the cuspal, sublord has changed. And when the cuspal sublord changes, the whole game, changes. And for example, when you are trying to analyze the character sketch of a person, then Krishnamurti says that you have to focus on the sublord of the ascendant, which is Rahu. And then there are some more details about it, how to judge the character sketch. But Rahu is in the focus for judging, the character sketch. But if there is a 6 minute difference in time, then it becomes Jupiter. So the character sketch, becomes very different. Similarly, for other, aspects of life like marriage or going abroad or being politically successful or meeting with an accident or not. So this is one of the major, stumbling block in Krishnamurti about, the time of birth. If the time of birth is not precise, and which in most of the cases it is not, then the sublord changes, and you cannot rely on the sublord to make an analysis. So that's why personally, I don't use sublord, especially in the birth horoscope. But like I mentioned to you that this is such a wonderful, predictive tool offered by Krishnamurti, the whole concept of sublord and whether an event is promised or not. So obviously, this question comes to our mind that is this a lost case? Whole beauty of sublord is gone because of this confusion in the birth time, which will always be there. Krishnamurti has come up with how to fix the time of birth with the help of the ruling planet or not, but I would not rely on that. I will do one video on ruling planets to show you how what are the ruling planets and how they are used, but I don't think that's a very reliable method in pinpointing the accurate time of birth. So like I mentioned, in the birth horoscope, the the uncertainty of time of birth with even 5 minutes 6 minutes can cause all the predictions or all the analysis to go in a different direction. Now the but how do we then use the cuspal sublords? For using the cuspal sublord, the Horary or the query based Krishnamurti Paddhati is the best tool, because in Horary astrology what happens is that you don't rely on the time of birth given by the person who is asking the question. The time of birth depends on that sorry, the time of analyzing the query depends on the time when you sit down to analyze the query. So there you are 100% sure about the time, and that is where you can effectively use the cuspal sublord. For that, obviously, I will have to show you one example of how this is done. Cuspal sublord has tremendous, potential in Krishnamurti Paddhati. This is a very unique, proposition, and based on that, various other, theories like the cuspal interlinks of Bhaskaran, and then there is another, cuspal interlinks by Kullar. All these methods, came forth. They were propounded, and because of the beauty of the cuspal sublot. But we will show that, using a Horary chart, that how effectively, that can be used. So that is all, in this video. I hope, you enjoyed.